Hello everyone, Mindy Beverly with you here today with Scrappy Boy Stamps. Today I'm going to show you guys how to use our new stencil, which is the Chocolate Factory Scene Building Stencil, available in the Scrappy Boy shop. I'm also going to be using for this demo the A2 Stitch Scallop Edge Nested Dies. I used the second largest one here and I cut it 2 times. I cut it once from chipboard and once from watercolor paper for our ink blending. So we are going to start with the stencil, and this is really great to layer all of those cute little stamps on. This would make really great scenes for Valentine's Day cards too. Okay, so the stencil comes with a really fun like inset little heart here, so you could make a smaller heart or a border with the outside base as well. So you could either tape this down and use it as is like that, or you could use the base of the stencil here. I'm going to create this larger heart here, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to tape this down, I'm going to center this into my card base. So let me just use some washi tape so that my card base underneath doesn't shift. I'm just going to tape that down, and then I'm going to start ink blending out the heart first. I'm just going to tape down either side. And then I'm going to tape down my stencil. Just lining that straight up into the middle of my card base. And it's see-through, so you can see exactly where it's going to be. Tape it right along that top edge there. And then I'm going to tape here on either side so it doesn't shift on me. And then with these little cutouts on the side, I like to use just washi tape to cover those so that I don't have to be so careful around the edges. But that's totally up to you. I just found it's a lot easier that way. Because it never fails, I always end up getting some ink outside of the lines. And this also helps hold it down more too, because it sticks right through the card. Okay, there we go. I'll tape this edge one more time just so it doesn't shift. Okay, so we're all set to go ahead and ink blend. I'm going to be using a blending brush, and I'm going to be using Distress Oxide ink in Kitsch Flamingo. I'm just going to load this up. And then I'm going to start using circular motions to start blending this ink onto my card base. And really any pink or red distress ink would look great with this heart background. I'm using small circular motions, and I'm layering along the edges of the heart more so than the center, because I want it to have more of a 3D appearance. And you can just start building up that color. Concentrating it a little bit more on the edges. And then once you're happy with the blend, you can be done there, or you could also switch to another ink. This one I'm actually going to show you how to build this up a little bit more. So I'm going to switch to Distress ink in Candied Apple. And I'm just going to add a little bit more shading to the side of this heart. So I'm just loading up another blending brush, and I'm going to go right along the edges of my heart here on this right side and then this top edge here to give a little bit more dimension. So just like that, and then along this right top edge, I'm starting off the stencil and then onto the cutout, so I get this smoother blend there. And then you can take your pink sponge one more time, your pink brush, and just smooth out that blend. There we go. So now we have that multicolor. Then we can go ahead, we can remove our stencil to get our, to show our center heart here that we just blended. So that's all ready to go. And now we can add our little Chocolate Factory conveyor belt on the bottom. So we're going to add this right here to this bottom portion. We're going to leave our main base taped down. So I'm just moving these tapes here so this doesn't shift on us. And I'm going to line this up towards this bottom edge. There we go. And then you can see right through, so I'm just lining up the bottom of the stencil along the dotted line. And then I'm going to tape this down, just like we did before. I can remove some of this other tape and reuse it. Okay, and then I'm just going to tape right across this bottom portion so it doesn't pull through there. And I'm going to tape across this top part here. So now it's just that conveyor belt piece that's showing. Up and then tape that down. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to, I just have some gray ink here. This is just a plain gray pigment ink. And I'm just going to use a little blending brush. This one is not distressed, but you could use a distress ink if you wanted to. And I'm just going to start ink blending this conveyor belt, and I'm just going straight across. Because this is so thin, the little lines between, you want to pull in the direction of the direction of this little conveyor belt. So I'm just going to start ink blending, building up this color with this gray. Oops, I had a piece of tape there. Let me move that out of the way so I can ink blend underneath that. There we go. So again, just pulling this straight down across the sides there. And just building up this kind of silvery conveyor belt tone. There we go. I'm just pulling it straight across. We want to blend enough that you can't really see this heart through the back part there. Okay, that should be good. I mean, you can see it a little bit, but it's still going to work. So we're going to go ahead and remove the stencil here. So now we have our conveyor belt added to our card base. Just like that. And now we can add our little chocolates to the conveyor belt. So I'm just going to remove this tape from the inside part of our stencil to reveal the little chocolate portion. So we have two different sizes of the chocolates. You have the larger ones for a pattern paper, and then you have the smaller ones here. The larger ones, the inside of the heart has the little swirls for it, for these larger ones. This one here already has it lined up for the swirls. So we're just going to add these little chocolates to the top part of our conveyor belt. So you're just going to line it right up on top. And then you're going to tape down your stencil just like before. And we're just going to grab some washi tape and pull it across the bottom part right now because we don't want those little swirls to pull through yet. And then we're going to add one to the top so we don't accidentally ink blend into the heart there. We want just those little chocolates to show. Okay, so now I'm going to be switching to my Distress Ink in Vintage Photo and a blending brush. I'm going to load this up and I'm going to start ink blending these little chocolates on here. And again, just small circular motions, start building up the color on these. And you're going to want to add a few layers so it layers over the heart background. Go, super cute. And again, just small circular motions building up that color tone for our little chocolate pattern there. Okay, so now when you're happy with that blend, we can go ahead and remove the stencil. Oops, and I got a little bit into the heart there. So how you can fix that is you can just take your little blending sponge with your pink and just blend that out, smooth it out. I should have taped a little bit higher, that's why I add the tape, but there we go. So now it's blended out, looks just fine. Okay, so now we're going to add the little swirls to the chocolates. So we're going to remove that tape off the bottom part where the swirls are. These line up perfectly to your little, to the little chocolates. We're going to line this right up on top of those chocolates. And again, tape this down. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to tape down this top part so we don't pull through when we're ink blending. And then we're going to tape the bottom portion just like we did before. There we go. And now for these little details, I would either do black soot or you can do a pigment ink in a dark brown. I'm going to do the pigment ink in a darker brown because that layers really well over the Distress ink. So I'm going to use that same little blending brush and small circular motions to get that fine detail pulling through. If you wanted to add like little white swirls, you could use like a gel paste and just put it through, or glitter gloss. That would work really great too. So just small circular motions, getting in all those little detail areas with the blending brush. And then to add a tiny bit of dimension to this, I am going to grab my black ink, my black pigment ink, and I'm just going to add just a little bit, one layer on top of it, just to darken it a little bit more so that these little swirls really stand out on those chocolates underneath. Okay, so then we can go ahead and remove the stencil. You can see all those little swirls are added on. Super, super cute. Then we can remove all this tape. So this one here is all ready for our little characters. You can take, since this is the distress ink, we can activate that ink of the heart behind it. Since we used the two different types of inks, the pigment ink is not going to activate, but the distress ink will. So we'll be able to get some of these cool little water droplets. I'm just going to take an old toothbrush and spritz this with some water to activate the ink, especially in the heart. And then those little chocolates with the distress ink underneath. I'm going to spritz a couple of times to give some variation. Just let it sit for a moment. And then you can take a tissue or a rag and dab up those water droplets. There we go. So there is our fun background all ready for a card. And now we can add one more layer, which was this one here. And I'm going to show you guys how to use that pattern paper portion of the stencil with the chocolates. So for this, what I wanted to do is, like on the front of a card, I was going to have this layered where just this top edge is showing. So I'm just going to add some chocolates to this top edge and the left side there. But if you had a full pattern, you could do that as well for this easily. I'm going to add a little bit of washi tape underneath so it doesn't shift on us as we're trying to ink blend this. Okay, so now we have our stencil again. I'm going to remove this tape here and this. Okay, so now we have this pattern right here. So I'm going to add this little chocolate and hearts pattern. Remember, I'm just going to add it off this top edge and then the bottom, and it's a repetitive pattern, so you can just relayer it and have it, you know, just keep going as much as you want for however big your background is. And I'm just going to tape this down. I'm going to go ahead and ink blend this with that same vintage photo. All right, I'm going to get some washi tape again and just tape this down. And then I'm going to go across this edge so I don't accidentally add ink to that right side until we layer it. Okay, so once you have it taped down, then we can take that same distress ink and vintage photo, and I'm just going to go right over the stencil and building up this color in small circular motions just like before. We're going to add all of our little chocolate details first, or the main base chocolate parts, and then we're going to add all the swirl details at the very end. So again, we're just going to build up this color on top of the chipboard. And if you wanted pink chocolates, you know, or white chocolate, you could mix this with a different, you know, use a different ink. I just thought the brown on brown tones would look really cute with this. Okay, so once you're happy with the blend, we can shift the stencil over. So I'm just going to remove this. And you can see how this can line up perfectly. So all I'm going to do is just shift the stencil, line it up. I can see right through it. And I'm going to ink blend this right edge to get the rest of this little pattern here. I already did the rest of that stencil, so it's just this little right edge I need to get. And I could continue on as far as I wanted this to go. Okay, so now that I have that blended, now I need to get this edge here, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shift this down. Let's see. I am going to, I think I want to do it like this. And you can see right through, so you could just add your pattern as you go. So right like that. I'm not going to worry about taping this down because I'm just going to get this center portion on this left edge, our left. Okay, and then when you're happy with that, we can shift this down again. And then tape it down one more time and get this bottom edge. Okay, and then we can remove that stencil. So now we have the little chocolate pattern on there. And then you can remove the tape and clean off the stencil part. Now we're going to be using the center of this to add our little swirls. And you can just go through and add whatever swirls you want in whatever order you want. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to be grabbing the brown pigment ink, and I'm going to switch to, I'm going to be using the same one I used before. And then we can just randomly add whatever swirls we want onto these chocolates. Let's see, I'm going to add these ones like that. They align right up with these 3 chocolates there. So I'm going to tape down this stencil, this heart part. There we go. And then I'm just going to go ahead and ink these little swirls. And then remember, I used the black pigment ink too. Whoops. Just to add a little bit of variation. Okay, so now I can go ahead and shift this. Now that those ones are done, I'm going to add some swirls to these ones. And again, just tape it down. And you can see exactly where it's going to be because you can just line it right up. It's see-through. And again, starting with my darker brown and then moving to a little bit of the black pigment ink. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and I can shift it down to the last ones on that edge. There's those 2. And again, and then shifting to the black for a little bit of variation. And there's those swirls, and now we can go ahead and add the last 2 swirl sections here to the top part of our card. So right here, again adding those little swirl details. And then switching to the black on those right edges. There we go. And then we have this one here, lining it right up on top of those little chocolates, taping it down. And then adding a little bit of that black to the edge, and then we can shift that. We have 2 more little swirls here on the side we could have going off the edge, or you could just leave it without. Totally up to you. I'm just going to continue and just finish this off, ink blending the edge there. And then using the black. All right, and now all of our little ink blending on this top section is done. You can see that super cute little pattern there of those little chocolates. Close up my ink pads, and then what we would do is we could just add this right to the front of our card base. So we would just layer this on the front and then pop this up on some foam tape, have it shifted just slightly, and then add your little characters on there with the stamps, and you are all set for your card. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Again, I used the Scrappy Boy stamps, the Chocolate Factory Scene Building Stencil, and I used the A2 Stitch Scallop Edge dies, all available in the Scrappy Boy shop. All right, talk to you guys again soon. Bye.